Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that talks about human development and psychology to maybe help you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. And last time we were talking about entering first grade, and we're going to pick up on that again. To make the most academic progress, a child needs to be involved in what is going on in class. And that's kind of true with everybody. You need to be involved with what's going on at work or school or whatever. So, if you have a problem where you can't do that, that's a problem. The better first graders feel about their academic skills, the more engaged they tend to be. And conversely, the harder children work in school, the more self-confidence they develop about their academic abilities. And of course, that's true. I mean, we've all known like the smart kid who's, confident that he's the smartest kid. And then sometimes another kid will knock them off their perch and they're not liking that because they were the smartest kid. But, of course, you're going to be the most happy in something that you're good at. That goes, without saying. And when you're planning your child's future with them, should be their decision, with them. Take a look at the things they're best at in school, because those are things they're going to succeed at and they're going to feel good about doing. Interest, attention, and active participation are associated with achievement test scores, and even more so with teachers' marks from first grade through at least fourth. So your kids' first through fourth grade settings sets the stage for how they're going to do the rest of their school career. That's why it's so important. If in elementary school there is a bad teacher who is not treating your child equally or well, and now kids will lie, you got to go check it out for yourself. You can go at any time. You can make an appointment, or you can just show up by law. It used to be that you could just go in and say, I want to go observe the classroom. Did you make an appointment? No, but I want to go anyway. So legally, it used to be you had the right to do that. So, if there's a problem, find out what the problem is. It could be your kid, but it's not always your kid. So, if there's a problem, find out what it is. Since patterns of classroom behavior seem to be established in first grade, this crucial year offers a window of opportunity for parents and teachers to help a child form good learning habits. And you need to impress upon them that that's important, that it's their job to learn. They're kids and their job is to learn. When they get grown, it's going to be their job to go to work. But for now, their job is school. They need to learn. In addition to children's own characteristics, each level of the context of their lives, from the immediate family to what goes on in the classroom to the messages children receive from peers and from the larger culture, such as, it's not cool to be smart, or, that influences how well they do in school. Let's look at the web of influences. So what's going on at home influences them. What's going on in the neighborhood. What's going on in their area. All of this influences the child and is going to play a part in how they do in school. Sometimes parents forget that. Sometimes teachers forget that. But that's the fact. Students who are high in self-efficacy, who believe that they can master schoolwork and regulate their own learning, are more likely to try to achieve and more likely to succeed than students who do not believe in their own abilities. And that's why it's so important that you tell your kids when they do a good job. If all you're giving them is negative reinforcement, they're going to feel negative about themselves. You need to give the positive reinforcement as well so they can feel positive about themselves. And when you achieve a balance, then they learn, oh, okay, well, this is good, this is bad, and they start to learn, their own moral code. That's how they learn that. You got to put that in there. Kids are, like a computer. It comes. We got a computer, and I said I'll never get another one of that brand. But it came with nothing. It's supposedly a programmer's computer, but the guy said about how much storage it had, blah blah blah. And my kids were like, "Yeah, get that one." We got it here. It came with nothing. We had to seek out on the internet players and things, to download to this computer. So everything there I had to add. There was nothing there. And your kid is like that when they're born. Is their little baby? No offense, ain't nothing going on in there. You got to put it there. They have instincts, and they start to form schemas on ways to get their needs met. But as far as information, it's your job to program it in. So, do your job. Do your job. Parents of achieving children create an environment for learning. They provide a place to study and keep books and supplies. They set times for meals, sleep, and homework. And this buffet you see behind me, when we had moved it from the living room, it used to hold movies. And after that, it held schoolwork. We had the last 3 drawers in the end for my 3 sons. And they had their satellite schoolwork in these drawers. And if it didn't have homework, like I said, there was a time we did homework. I would say, go get a workbook and do, something out of the workbook. Some of my children were more willing to do that than others. And then others would complain they never got to look at this, that, or the other magazine. I was like, but it's right there. You could have got it at any time, but whatever. So, but, when you take an interest in their education, and even if they don't have homework, you can, like I said, satellite school them, get workbooks for people their, age, and keep them up on what they're supposed to be doing so they can learn. And the more they learn, the more they succeed in life. They monitor how much television their children watch and what their children do after school. And they show interest in their children's lives by talking with them about school and being involved in school activities. And I was on the SBDM committee. I would volunteer for school activities. I would go to the open houses. It's your job as a parent to be there for your kids, It shouldn't just be like school's the daycare center. You shove them off and you don't think about them again until they come home. And then, oh, I don't want to go to that PTA meeting. I don't want to do this. I want to be, free from such things. You're doing kids a disservice because they're going to notice that. As children get older, the responsibility for seeing that schoolwork gets done shifts from parent to child. Because once they get into middle school, they should be pretty self-sufficient on that. You shouldn't have to say, do your homework. They should know they need to do their homework. The time you get to middle school, it's a little bit harder than elementary school was. And you might see you need to do that homework so you can keep up. My goodness. How do parents motivate children to do well? Some use extrinsic or external means, giving children money or treats for good grades, or punishing them for bad ones. Like I said, we had, the tally chart, and for good things and good grades, you get a good one. For bad things and bad grades, you get a bad one. And that dictated what your allowance was going to be. And that, of course, dictated how much candy or toys you could buy on Friday evening when we took you out, And, if you wanted to save the money up, like my middle son realized that, all I'm getting is this like little dollar stuff or whatever. I could save this money and get something bigger. And so that's what he started doing. So kids learn, they pick up on things. Others encourage children to develop intrinsic or internal motivation by praising them for ability and hard work. And of course, we did that too. I did that too. We ain't going there. But the children need to internalize that their work's important. Their schoolwork's important. It's going to help them later in life. So by you praising their good job and everything, what you're teaching them is it does matter if they do a good job. Intrinsic motivation seems more effective. In a study of 77 third and fourth graders, those who were interested in the work itself did better in school than those who mainly sought grades or parents' approval. So again, especially in the older grades, the children can pick what they want to take. Let them pick what they're interested in. Don't tell them they have to do this, they have to do that. I was told I had to take typing. Now that has served me well in writing and everything on the computer. Here on the laptop, it doesn't work because the keys don't match where my fingers would normally be to type. So I still hunt and peck with one finger. I'm a little faster than probably someone who didn't learn to type with one finger. But, I wanted to take another class, but it was insisted that I take that class because as a woman, I could get a job as a secretary if I learned how to type. My parents were products of their generation, and basically, if you're a woman, that's the best you could, come up with. If you couldn't be a nurse or, a legal secretary, then you could be a secretary. So some of us, weren't really given a chance to go where we needed to be and wanted to be, So, all right. Parenting styles may affect motivation. Of course they do. In one study, the highest achieving fifth graders had authoritative parents. Remember, we talked about parenting styles in another podcast. Authoritative is where you teach them. There are consequences for bad behavior. There are rewards for good behavior. But the main thing is you're teaching them. It's, everything is a teaching moment. And, when they ask why, you tell them why, it's like one time I was criticized. My parenting style was criticized, saying I was trying to be their friend and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, I don't have to prove I'm in charge because I know I'm in charge. I'm the mom. I am in charge. I don't have to prove that by acting, no, that's unnecessary. I knew I was in charge. I proved it by being in charge. I didn't have to be a jerk. I didn't have to be mean and punitive or whatever. I knew I was in charge, and it was going to be my way. Or, I could put you in timeout 50 times if that's what you needed. I'd keep grounding you till you didn't get to go out for 2 weeks if that's what you needed. But, I had to prove. So the teaching was there. And that's the important thing in authoritative parenting is the teaching, because your children need to learn. These children were curious and interested in learning. They liked challenging tasks and enjoyed solving problems by themselves because, the parents taught them to be self-motivated, that it was their job, and, they could figure it out. Authoritarian parents who kept after children to do their homework, supervised closely, and relied on extrinsic motivation tended to have lower achieving children. So if you're sitting on top of that kid, that's not right. Write it better. Many a day I had to listen to that. Your children lose interest. They don't care because it becomes such a chore. It's not about learning anymore. It's about pleasing the parent, and it becomes such a chore, they no longer are interested. They lose interest in the schooling. And that's a shame, but that's, authoritarian tiger moms or authoritarian parents, that's what you're doing to your kid. You're making them less interested in school. They don't want to learn. They just want to do what they need to do to get away from you because you're, yelling at them and stuff. And they lose interest. So did children of permissive parents who were uninvolved and did not seem to care how the children did in school. Now, I've known a few of those too. Let the kid do anything they want. Who cares? Oh, they're just a kid. Let them be a kid. Oh, and the kid gets to do anything they want, and then they're a spoiled brat, and their behavior is crap. And then, the kid doesn't perform in school because he doesn't have to, act like a decent human at home. So why would he care about acting like a decent human and learning anything in school? Socioeconomic status can be a powerful factor in educational achievement, not in and of itself, but through its influence on family atmosphere, on choices of neighborhood, on quality of available schooling, and on parents' way of rearing children. Because, as we know, if you're in poverty, you're under stress, and you're more likely to be authoritarian and punish your child, in some cases even abuse the child, if you are in poverty, because the stress is what drives your motivations. When researchers followed 1,253 second through fourth graders for 2 to 4 years, those from low-income families tended to have lower reading and math achievement test scores, and the income gap in math achievement widened as time went on. So, the poorer you start out, the less opportunities you have. Now, I don't even want to hear no arguments about that. That's a fact. There's been study after study after study done on it. You can equal that out as you get older if you have those opportunities. There are people who excelled at one thing or another, got into college, got the grad, degree, and made good money. But not everyone has those opportunities, If you don't have a car and the only place you could work is the nearest store you can walk to, that, is a problem. And if you can't earn enough to ever buy a car, and you might be lucky enough to get a bus pass or something, you're kind of stuck. You're kind of stuck there. So, it does make a difference. So if anyone wants to say, oh, no, it doesn't, it's equal. No, it's not. It's not. If you live out in a place where basically there's one store nearby, you don't have any transportation, they're not hiring, where you at? It's a problem. It's a problem. SES, socioeconomic status, can affect parents' ability to provide an environment that enhances learning. That might mean there's no place, in the home for them to study. I went to an apartment when I used to sell Avon years and years ago, and the people did not have a dining room table. They had a coffee table, and they had like end tables and tray tables. They did not have a dining room table. So I imagine their children probably had to sit on the floor or the coffee table or whatever. And, when I lived at home, we sometimes, if my parents weren't up and using the TV, we used the coffee table. So I prefer it because it's lower. I'd sit on the rug and work on the coffee table. But, there are problems sometimes in the home that it's not a good environment for learning, because if the TV's on and other kids are watching TV or adults watching TV and the kids sitting there at the coffee table trying to do schoolwork, basically they're also going to be watching TV, and they might get some schoolwork in on commercials if it's not a good commercial they want to see. But this stuff happens. Among 229 two-parent and single-parent families with school-age children, parents who reported adequate financial resources were more likely to have confidence in their effectiveness as parents, to set positive goals for their children, and to use parenting practices that promote children's competence. So more affluent parents were more confident in their ability to parent, because children had food, clothes, roof over their heads. They didn't feel that there was a lack, that they were not, meeting a need for their children. And they could set positive goals, because if, you're not worried that you can't keep the house going and the kid might have to go to work or, help on the farm or whatever, you're more likely to set a positive goal for your child if their money is there for their higher education. And, of course, if you're in a good place, you can parent from a good place, and that helps your child. They established consistent routines and harmonious family relationships. Like I said, we did this at this time, bath time started this. A consistent routine helps the child to know what to expect out of their life. There are people I know whose the life was chaotic and the kids are chaotic. There was no set schedules, no routines, and they came out a mess. And family relationships should be, stressed and harmonious. Because, like when my kids got older, I used to get on them, or put them in their bed for however long when they were younger. If they were fighting, separate them, put them each in a place. And then as they got older, I said, all right, I saw that. You aren't going to be hitting each other. You're brothers. You're supposed to love each other. Go hug. I want you to hug for 7 minutes or whatever. Oh, and I would sit there for that 7 minutes or however old, the older one was, until, they realized this is what mom's going to make us do if she catches us fighting, so we're not going to fight. They didn't want to sit there and hug each other for 7 minutes. And we're actively involved at school. And like I said, you should be involved in your child's school. You should be. Now, if it's impossible because of work schedule or whatever, enlist grandma or grandpa or auntie or somebody, to go to these things and do this with this kid, so they feel like someone in their family is interested in what they're doing at school. And then when they come home from this event, ask them about it. Well, how'd it go? What did you learn? What did y'all do? And, show that you're interested, even if you can't absolutely be there. However, SES is not the only factor. In one longitudinal study, 8-year-olds whose home environment was cognitively stimulating had higher intrinsic motivation for academic learning at ages 9, 10, and 13 than children who lived in less stimulating homes. So the more you've set up your home for learning, educational toys, educational programs, the more a child's going to be interested in learning, because learning then becomes a consumption. They realize, I can get this information and know things. I can get this information and be able to do more things. And that's how they should look at learning. They shouldn't look at learning as something I have to do and I don't want to do it, because then that's their attitude for the rest of their life. And that's how you end up with a bunch of ignorant people. Sorry, but it's true. This was true over and above effects of SES. So your attitude towards it is actually more of an influence than your socioeconomic status. The neighborhood a family can afford generally determines the quality of schooling available. Again, if you live in an affluent neighborhood, you're probably going to have better schools with better teachers. You're making more money living in this affluent neighborhood than you are in a poor neighborhood with poorer families and teachers who aren't making as much money. So, it's just a fact. And this, together with the attitudes in the neighborhood peer group, affect motivation. Again, if you have a bad attitude about education, your children are liable to too. If it's not valued where you live, children aren't going to value it either. Still, many young people from disadvantaged neighborhoods do well in school because, like I said, it's the attitude. If they're taught by their parents, if you do good, you can do better than we did. You can get out of this neighborhood and you can have a better life. Then that's what they're looking forward to. What may make the difference is social capital. The family and community resources that families with children can draw upon. And that means, if it's valued in the community, if the community is committed to helping this child and this family, then that is, some social capital that they can draw on to help them. It's like having a big circle of family and friends and people in the neighborhood who care, like the saying is, it takes a village. In a 3-year experimental intervention called the New Hope Project, working parents were given wage supplementals to raise their income above poverty level and were offered subsidies for child care and health insurance. So see, there's one of those social programs at work that some people say we don't need, but I'm personally in favor of them to help people, because that's what Jesus would do. These parents express less stress and more optimism than a control group, and their school-age children's academic achievement and behavior improved. So if they're not stressed out about making a living, their attitude improves. Their children's attitude improves. So everything across the board improves. Because in life, there's positives and negatives. And if you bring the positives up to more than the negatives, then you can have a positive life. According to the principle of the self-fulfilling prophecy, and I'm sure most of us have heard that, and if you haven't, we're going to get into that, but it's something that may not be true, but you believe it's true, so you act like it's true, and then you start seeing the evidences that support your position that it's true, or you make a thing happen because you act that way. Children live up or down to other people's expectations for them. So if you expect the kid's going to do good, he probably is. And if you expect the kid's going to be bad and dumb and whatever, he probably is going to act that way. Because you're a big influence. Children learn what they live. In the Oak School experiment, teachers were falsely told at the beginning of the term that some students had shown unusual potential for cognitive growth, when these children actually had been chosen at random. So, these teachers thought they were getting these, advanced kids, and they were just getting regular kids, chosen at random. Yet several months later, many of them showed unusual gains in IQ. Why? Because the teachers assumed they were, brilliant children and treated them like they were. And therefore, the children acted like they were. Under certain conditions, such as when teachers favor or are perceived to favor high over low achievers, or when teachers have lower expectations for poor children, teachers' expectations do seem to function as self-fulfilling prophecies, both predicting and influencing students' learning abilities. So, any of you teachers who are listening to this, realize that. Don't you say negative things to those kids. And you parents, grandparents, whoever, same thing. Don't you say negative things to those kids. You can correct them. You can discipline them. But don't say things to hurt their self-esteem as a punishment. Find something positive and, build up the positive. You can build up a kid. You don't have to tear him down all the time, to put him in line. I'm the boss, Are you, though? If you have to prove that, are you? Because it seems to me like if you feel like you need to prove that, then maybe you're not. And you're insecure about the fact that you're not. Just saying. Just saying. Let's see. Yep. Yep, I think we did that. Performance can become self-perpetuating by fueling teacher expectations, which in turn influence student achievement as a child passes from class to class. So if this teacher said this negative thing about this kid, this teacher over here in the next grade is going to think, oh, well, this kid, So that kind of thing needs to stop. And, teachers, when I was going to SBDM, I went to classes at our educational center, and some of these teachers openly were talking about parents. Parents don't care. Parents do this. I mean, they had a very negative outlook on parents. And I told one teacher, I said, you know what? I am here getting adult ed credits, but I'm also a parent. And I think what you're saying about parents is horrible. And, all parents are not like that. And she got really upset with me and said, get out of my classroom. Don't come back. Here's a stack of, these ECE, not ECE, good gosh, educational credit sheets. I'll sign them. She gave me a big old stack of these papers saying, write down whatever class I have that you said you'd take, but I don't want to see you in my classroom again. So what I did was take them to the principal of the school and said, hey, when I was going to this class for this lady handed me these things because her husband happened to be the superintendent at that point. So, because I felt like that was a little dishonest, and if you're that prejudiced against parents, you shouldn't be teaching anybody. That's just a fact of life. You shouldn't be teaching anybody. So, give these kids good feedback. And that's where I'm going to leave you today. I hope this help you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Until next time.